Hello, welcome to Untitled Academy. Today is Murdermasking Part 2 with Sir Thumbs. Take it away, Thumbs.
Hi. Today we will be finishing up the murder masks we started last week. This will be really interesting because I moved in between, and even though I set aside the murder mask I'd been working on to make sure it was somewhere safe, I immediately lost it. So we are just going to be talking through some parts. Last time we were here, we cut out the shape of the murder mask and did some dyeing. And if you were going to do any tooling, we set up how to do that. God, Carps, I was going to say pet because I was looking at your name there on that. Carps, can you hold up your murder mask? There you see. Okay. Oh, yeah, and Pet's got hers there too. So the first thing we are going to do, hold on. Here is the murder mask I was making in the class I did just before this, my birds aren't real murder mask. First thing we are going to do is we are going to close up the nose. So I had you bring something that you can punch holes through your leather. My personal favorite is a handheld drill because it is cheap, easy, and fast, and you can make whatever size hole you want. A leather hole punch works perfectly fine, whatever you want to do. Generally, I do about 3 holes on each side of the little triangle shape I had you cut out last time. You can do it with just 2 on each side. You can do more. If you want. I think I did 4 on this one. And you were literally just going to punch out the holes. You were going to sew through. If you can, I was asked before this started that if you can do it without the needle, if you can, get the thread through the hole, sure. It's just infinitely easier to sew with a needle. I see Carps is setting up there. He's got the right idea. And here's the part where I'm going to feel weird just sitting watching you do this. But let's see. You can't see it as well on this one, but same thing. Literally, you are just going to sew that triangle shut. Get it tight.
So how do I want to set up the holes on the triangle?
Okay. Can you kind of see on this one? I have, I'm sorry, I know this isn't great. 2 or 3 holes on each side.
Okay.
Close to the edge, but not so close that you're going to tear through the side.
Okay.
I mean, it's so there's not a huge concern of that, but I've done it and it sucks. Let's see if I have. Nope, they all just look like big messes. Okay, I was hoping that I could show you the back of one, but it's not as easy to do. Oh, actually, I might have a murder mask unfinished over here. I always have unfinished projects. It's just a matter of where. Aha! Oh, Ginger, I left you. I'm so cruel. Aha, I do. My X-Men one. So, this is an old one. You can see that I did way too many holes for some reason, but I mean, it doesn't hurt it. It's just a ton. And it's just going up and down the side. Now, I am using sinew here. I personally think sinew is best for working on it because it is really hard to destroy. Like, it's really hard to snap sinew. Especially because it's waxed. No, you're perfectly fine. I'm the one intruding, love. Don't worry about being quiet. The downside of sinew, I need to get a better way to prep this. The downside of sinew is, because it's waxed, which helps keep it together, getting that initial knot is kind of a pain in the butt because it'll slide off. When you are knotting the edges, if you do sinew, make sure to knot it a few times, give it a good pull. Oh, that didn't work, and a good pull. That happens a lot. We're prepping this. As always, if you have questions, comments, just want to make fun of my bald head or whatever, I don't care. Go ahead, feel free to talk. Carps, your thing is muted. I can't hear you.
Hello.
Hello.
Have you used one of these before?
I have not.
Like a handy stitch, I guess. I don't know. I'm thinking that I don't remember how to use it. I used it once before. I know I'm thinking that I should watch a video on figure out how to do it.
It is on my list of things to learn.
But I think I just have a needle in here that I can use anyway, so.
I just picked up like 10 leather sewing needles off of Tandy for like $5. Like, it's not expensive.
Yeah, they're just little pieces of metal. I get you. I am going to wing it, I think.
I'm going to wing it is how I do most everything I do, for good or ill. Now, however you want your stitch to look is up to you. I personally, I don't know if I'll do it on this one. I personally prefer to do an X-shaped stitch just because I think it looks better. No, I think I'm just going to do it normal. Tell you I prefer an X-shaped stitch, and then I immediately decide not to do it for this one, but is what it is. Now, some of you have already painted. This one is already painted, so clearly it's not a big deal. Generally, I recommend don't paint until after you've hardened your piece, because, well, it's generally not great to set paint on fire, but at the small holes. At the temperature that we are going to be heating today, that is not a gigantic concern. And once you have the pieces sewn together, you're just going to knot at the top. You don't, if you can, you don't want to make too big of like a big clunky like ball of a knot, because that is more likely to hurt if it gets whacked right there. Also, particularly if you were someone who is using sinew for this, when you cut it, I mean, this is true of everything, but it's extra true with sinew, because it stretches a little bit, make sure to leave yourself just a little bit of just a little bit of extra bit. You're not cutting right at the knot, because as it stretches, you run the risk of the knot coming undone on itself. But I am going to take off the elastic for this. the elastic I'm cutting off on this one. Usually I would not do that because obviously you need the elastic or some kind of strap to wear it. But since I am doing repairs here on this one and not making from scratch, you know, there are some odd steps. This one, I think, was the first murder mask I ever made that I was actually happy with. What a difference a year or two makes. So when you're done, it should look something like that, or X shape if you decide to do that. Bam. Oh, next. And there is no rush to do the part that you're doing. I am going to start heating up. Hello, my love. I'm going to start heating up the oven because we bake these things in the oven for shaping. I am setting it about 200 degrees. You can go lower, you can go higher. Be careful, the higher it goes, the easier it is to burn yourself. I have a bag of these. I was making masks once, and I had to make like 15 of them. So I, trying to get through it faster, was soaking the masks, and then I turned up the oven to about 250 instead of 200, and I scalded the shit out of like the shape around my eyes of the mask I was wearing. So be careful, be slow. A lower heat will take longer to get the shaping right, but it will honestly be safer all told.
I have a question.
Yo.
So I'm about to stitch my nose holes here. And my question is, do I start from the bottom or do I start from the top?
You're gonna want to start from the bottom. I would guess. I've never tried from the top, but as if you went from the top, you would, or as you start from one side and go either way, it's going to close up. So it'd be easier to go from the bottom up to the edge instead of the edge going in. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. Thank you.
Okay. Like, I think you could do it, but I think you would end up swearing at it a lot. I would, at least. Sorry, started working on the thing and suddenly realized I was paying no attention to the class. That's my bad. But you guys are doing your thing. Yep, that looks like you got it right. You just want it tighter. You want it so it is closed up.
I have a question.
Yo.
Is there any tricks that you use? I've noticed that with my sinew, it frays a little bit sometimes, and you can't really use the same way as like if you were sewing, like lick the thread or something. How do you fix that?
I mean, I'm using a waxed sinew, and I literally just usually take my fingers and like you can kind of, sorry, that's terrible lighting there. Take my fingers and kind of just flatten it out. I have just licked it like the thread before, or you can just trim that little bit off. I mean, eventually it does get too frayed to like tie it up, and that just little clip.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Always use more sinew than you're gonna need, because something will go wrong if you don't, and it is way easier to clip a little bit off than to have to start partway through.
That makes sense.
Restart partway through. With the shaping that we're going to do, this is a much more complicated thing, but I mean, the exact same skills we're using for this murder mask, I used to shape this. So the basics of it works real well. I also just like this. Like, part of me is kind of bummed I'm giving it away, but at least I'm giving it away to places where it'll get used.
I have an additional question. Is there any specific way in which you knot it when you've reached the top? Is it just like a standard yank
just
it?
like a standard knot, but when you're knotting it, hold on, let me grab a piece of sinew so I can show here. When you're knotting it, so first loop, make sure that you're doing the next knot that is going the opposite direction. So when they pull, they're pulling against each other, because otherwise it's really easy. I don't know if I'm making any sense here.
I think that makes sense. I wish I had someone's finger to help me out here, though.
Because otherwise it's really easy. Like pull tight there, it's not doing anything. If I just do it, and it's not going to work now, I'm sure. If I just knot it the same way each time, it's pretty easy to pull. Just, pull one side out.
Is there anything you do to finish the knot? Or you just knot it? Like, do you heat it or like, I don't know, glue it?
A drop of like glue is not a terrible idea. I don't usually.
Only strong enough.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're worried about it at all, put a drop of super glue in it, and it's not going anywhere. Beetle, it looked like you were trying to show me there, and I'm sorry, I was talking to Carps there.
I'm pet.
Yeah. So it looks like you're having trouble getting it tight. Like, where is the one I was literally just? It's over here. I have to stop wandering while I'm working on things. The way that you have it, it is not going to necessarily be a problem, because that is way too small. It's not like that's going to stop, if an arrow hits right there, that little gap that you have, it will just, if you can get it tight like this, it will look more complete, and I am betting it will be more comfortable. And
I also
really
have
what it
bracelet.
is every time, you know, you go through that part and then you pull it tight and then you go through the next set of holes and then you pull it tight and it you build up that tension as you go along, because if you just try to build the tension up at the very end, it will there's too many angles you're pulling up against at that point, and it's just not going to want to tighten. That looks good, Carps.
I do have a little bit of a gap in the middle here.
It happens too. As I said, you really just have to just yank on it. I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to.
I think part of my mistake here is that it's actually sealed at the very top. So like there's no gap right up here.
Mm-hmm.
So when I pull it, it's not tapered. So this part is as closed as this will let it be. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you
I think
know, at that little piece there, the only person who is going to notice is you.
yeah, I get
And
you.
a judge if you take it to a ANS competition, but honestly, I hate ANS competitions. So
Yeah.
that's me, though. I'm not gonna say a bad thing about them. I just they stress me out.
Well, that does make sense to me too. I think that like it depends on what you're making it for, and so like if you're using it for practical use, then those little minute details aren't necessarily going to worry you if you're trying to use it for armor specifically. Is that kind of what you mean? Because
Yeah,
practical and aesthetic are two different things to value, certainly.
the little gap right there isn't going to do anything to make it less effective as armor.
Yeah, I
You
understand.
will, because it is a thing that is not working quite right. Oh well.
Very cool. I'm excited.
If you are ready, or at least ready enough to listen, follow along, we can go to the next step. First thing is, if you are going to be baking along with me, that sounds like a stoner joke. I did not mean it that way. Actually, putting
Right.
it in the, as I said, set the oven to about 200 degrees. Most ovens go as low as 170. Again, the lower it is, the easier it is to control the temperature and the setting, but the longer it ends up taking. Next thing we are going to do is we are going to get the leather wet. The wetter it is, the easier it is to manipulate the leather to the shape. Sorry, I'm having troubles with Zoom trying to autocorrect my light there. The wetter it is, the easier it is to manipulate the shape, the longer it's going to take to dry and harden. Literally what we're doing is we're just baking the water out of the leather and it hardens in the process. So I tend to get it a decent soak. Both sides here, although since I have paint on that side, it's not going to go through as much. Okay, I'm just moving out of this room. It does not like this room. And then I am going to take my mask and I am literally going to hold it up against my face. I'm going to pinch right here where along the nose, because as it is, if you don't do that, it leaves those gaps right on the edges of the nose. I'm going to hold it like this for a moment, and then holding it in this shape, I'm going to go put it in the oven.
So Thumbs, I have a question for, potentially people at home watching this. Are there any things that I can't do anymore after I put it in the oven? Like, is this there's no going back?
It'll be harder if you need to do any of the tightening of the stitching, but not really. The nice thing about the water hardening and the oven hardening that I'm doing is if I ever needed to start from scratch, like I have hardened that one before, and then I soaked it in water and it just came apart. We're not talking about I sweat in it and suddenly it doesn't hold its shape anymore. but like, I put it in a while back. I put it in like a bucket of water and it reset.
That's pretty neat.
The other nice thing about this is when I sweat in it and when I move in it a little bit, it will loosen up and fit to the shape of my face a little, in a way that if I wax hardened it, it wouldn't do, because once it's wax hardened, it's set like that. I have never wax hardened before. It is a very different experience. It also requires boiling a bunch of wax, and I've not done that, and it sounds way messier than it needs to be, and I make enough of a mess in my life already.
I saw a video of somebody doing it in like an old crock pot, and that's what they used as their thing to wax harden.
Look, if you're making something that you really like, that you want to protect you against real combat, several layers of wax hardened is the way to go. If you are doing something for foam wacky bats, what we're doing here is a perfectly functional, capable way of shaping things.
Nice. Well, I do have another question. So we were going to put holes in it because we're going to attach strapping to it. Is that something we can still do after we harden it? Poke holes in it?
Yes. Thank you for pointing that out, because it's something that I didn't think of as much, because as I said, I tend to do the drill where it doesn't care at all. It is easier to, if you're using like the leather hole punch, it is much easier to do through a softer leather. You can leather hole punch through a hardened one. It's fine. It'll work. But
if somebody at home is using something that is maybe a less powerful source of making those holes, would you like to very briefly go over where they should do that before they harden it?
Yes, I can show you, because I haven't put them together on this one yet.
Cool.
So I have holes. You can see them on the top bit and the bottom connections right there. You're fine. That's not that loud. Top bit, bottom bit, and I've done it on both sides. Then when I do the elastic, okay, hold on. I am juggling things here.
I'm actually going to go grab a hole punch real quick too. That way I can follow along.
When I do the elastic pieces, it is going to connect from this side over to this side, and the same on the bottom. The reason, I'm going to swap this again. The reason that I do both is because when I first did one of these, I only had it up on this top side over, and it felt really uneven. Like it shifted a little bit as we moved, and I kept thinking I was going to whack myself in the eyes. I never did, but it was just uncomfortable. I did a second one. The second piece of elastic will go, God, stupid legs, from here, and it goes under the ear over to the other side. And it is not necessarily as tight as the top one. It is not for keeping it on your face. It is just for kind of helping it hold in place.
So just make 4 like little leather hole punches on each side then?
Yeah, I've done it before. This one I just did 2 holes in each spot. I've done it before with 4 holes and did the little X shape. Honestly, the 2 will work just fine. And you're gonna do top corner, bottom corner, top corner, bottom corner. It's there. It's hard to see on that side. Bottom corner. Over, man, this really does remind me of Sub-Zero. That's unrelated. Now, for the hardening and shaping part, you're going to want to check it every 5 to 10 minutes or so. I am horribly impatient when it comes to this, and most things in life, let's be honest. Because it was pretty wet the first time, it didn't hold its shape super well. That's part of the reason why we check it, to go and do some shaping tweaks just to make sure everything is hunky-dory. Now, I already mentioned when doing the shaping that I pinch up here at the nose. I am also holding it up here at the corner to make sure I get that shape, and down here at the jaw. Not on the very front as much, but kind of this middle spot, because it just helps shape the entire thing. Then, having done some basic shaping, it goes back in here. We give the puppers her due pets. And then we get back out of my wife's way, who is very kindly letting me do shaping while she cooks dinner. Just for funsies, I can't get too close to them because they're still intact. But several of the various helms that I have made. Second one to the left, I did not make, I just painted, but that I have made over the course of my time crafting.
Very cool. I like the Mandalorian one.
Yeah, it is almost unwearable.
Yeah.
It is made off the Prince Armory pattern. I cut out the pieces. That is where I realized that that pattern is not designed for the thickness of our leather, especially because I did not skive those edges because I didn't necessarily understand that yet. So it looks really cool, and it is not comfortable at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I had that similar experience, not realizing that the armor was supposed to be much thinner.
Mm-hmm.
Or the
But
leather.
I have learned from the process, and on my list of things to make, although it's going to have to wait until after the holidays because I'm making a few leather projects for people, some as gifts for me and some that people are paying me to make, that have to get done before Christmas. Because the last thing I need, really, if we're being honest, is another helm. I just really want a Mando helm.
No, I want one too.
One of my squires, I tend to find ways to bond like individually with my squires, and processes of going along and kind of like, you reached to this point, congratulations, here's kind of a reward. And what we're doing with her is she's made a Mando helmet for herself, and as she completes projects, I'll be like, oh, okay, now that you've completed that project, you can build a bracer. Oh, now that you've done that project, you can do the chest plate. And like Mando from the TV show, as she, kind of acquires honor for the clan, she gets a more complete Mando set.
Very cool. I really like the idea.
Because we're giant friggin' nerds, another one is earning their ranks through Starfleet and getting promoted up to captain/knight eventually. I am a big believer in positive affirmation, while also not just being like, here's a checklist, go, you're a knight when you're done, because there's no personal growth required that way.
I will be
that's
right.
a different
I'm gonna get
conversation.
some more water, but I agree with you.
Yeah.
I have a question. How wet am I supposed to get this in order to form fit it? Am I to soak it, or can I just spray it until it's dark?
Honestly, I would just spray it till it's dark. I soaked it here. I always soak it. I don't know why I do that because it always makes it take 4 times longer than it needs to. I just like start getting it wet and I'm like, oh no, it needs to be soaked through. You need to get it wet enough that you can form it around your face. The wetter it is, the longer it's going to take, the more times you're going to have to put it back in the oven.
So I hadn't thought of this, but I have dyed mine already, and I'm wetting it, and it is dye's coming off. That makes sense.
Here is the truth of dye. It's going to get on your face.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. You're going to sweat in this, and you're going to take it off, and you're going to be, in your case, black. I have turned myself pink on accident doing this.
Nice.
Because I did it with a red dye, and as it bled pink. Chorizo.
Yeah, baby.
How long is it supposed to be in the oven for? I mean, you said until it's done, basically, but is there like a rough estimate?
It usually takes me maybe half an hour. It depends on how wet it is, as I said, and how hot you have the oven. At 200, and if I'm checking every 5 minutes or so, and I don't get it too wet, maybe half an hour. As I said, this is a good time to have other things to do, and then work on that, go back and check. It is the hard part of teaching this class, particularly when I'm teaching it over the internets, because I'm like, all right, check it and put it and do some like slight tweaks to the shape, and then we ignore it again for 5 to 10 minutes. It's another thing when we're doing this in person, and we can just play Mario Kart in the meantime or whatever.
Nice. I like Mario Kart.
We play so much Mario Kart. Make sure when you're shaping it, get the bottom part along your jaw to close up a little bit there. It will just form fit to your face better, and it'll be more comfortable, and you're less likely to jam yourself in the sternum if you hit down too hard at a later point. So it is. So it is the 3 points. Point A, point B,
Point A.
promise. Point B is around the nose, and then point C is right down here with the thumb.
Like this.
Yep.
All right. I dig it. I like it. That's good.
I got to get my X-Men kit going again. Man, I loved that. And it drove just the right people nuts because I'm a bad person.
Honestly, this channel isn't there to preach, but I will agree. I think that I appreciate anybody who's putting the time into making a cool kit,
I am
honestly.
a big believer, particularly I think comes from being such a big comics fan. I mean, real quick, that is my Marvel Comics collection.
Very cool.
That is well, DC's over there, other comics are over there. Like, I am a crazy person, and my poor loving wife tolerates me in a way that I can never appreciate enough. But I think because comics have sometimes such a loose relation to continuity, you can totally do like, now we'll do an issue of Batman if he was in a fantasy world, and it can be freaking sweet. So I've always been a big believer that you can translate not just Star Wars, which is already kind of built for space fantasy, into a way that works for Bellegarth, but you can't just do a one-to-one translation. Like if I just did like, spandex, it would be bad, and you should not do that. But I can take a lot of the same design aspects. Here's my high horse. You can take a lot of the same design aspects and make it work. I also have a Naruto headband to go with this. And honestly, the coverage of the piece up here, which is armor legal if I am also wearing the mask, because then enough of the face is covered, gives some of the most breathable while still protecting your face coverage that you can possibly get. The top of your dome, not protected at all. But it is way less hot than some of the full-faced helms or full-headed helms that I have, which give wonderful protection and they look wicked cool. And they are about 400 degrees to go running around on the chaos field wearing them. Any armor that you are doing in Bellegarth, you get to play the balance of how breathable, how movable is in it versus how much coverage. And personally, since you don't die in Bellegarth, I am a lot more open to open spots for coverage, at sacrificing protection for mobility. While if I was hit with actual swords, I would be much more likely to sacrifice mobility for protection.
I went and I asked permission with my roommates to make sure that I could use the oven for leather. So
that is smart.
I didn't even think about it, honestly. But it doesn't smell or anything, does it, while it's in the oven?
It shouldn't. The only time it has ever smelled is I have this one kind of dye, and it's a brand that I've never used before, and honestly, I don't like it that much anyways. And that one put off a really strong smell, but you had to get really close to it in the first place. And to smell the smell, and it didn't last very long. Like we just turned on the fan and it went off on its merry little way.
Vito, were you able to sew it up on the top?
Looked like you got most of it at least.
Very cool. I am excited. I went, and since our last class, I went and I bought just so much leatherworking stuff. Just so much. In fact, I have to go back and get some more. I think
So,
I'm
you know how you tell people, like when they're like, "Oh, but I don't have gear," and you're like, "We have loaner gear. You don't need like your own gear. You can just show up. It doesn't cost any money." And we all know that's a lie. So, like it's true at first, but it ends up being a lie. Kind of the same thing with leatherwork. Like, oh, you can totally just start with this basic $25 prep kit. And honestly, most of what I use is that prep kit. But I've been acquiring leather tooling supplies at a really astounding rate. And I'm someone who already does art projects, so I already collect art supplies at a astounding rate.
That's half the hobby. Collecting. I got myself this I'm quite proud of. Got that. Nice piece of granite, some rubber.
Ooh.
I'm a fan.
My father-in-law found me. Hold on, I'm moving up here. Here's my current workspace.
Oh, that's awesome. It's a whole big old slab of it.
Big old slab of granite. he got tired of watching me work on various wherever I could make it work. And man, working on granite as opposed to just like, I've literally done tooling on the leather sitting on this thing.
Yeah.
So it's just a world of difference in the amount of like depth I could get into the piece and the amount of the like how steady it was, because that shakes and all the pieces go everywhere.
Uh-huh.
Also, I really love these because I can do words into it now.
I just
Although-
bought a set too.
I'm really terrified anytime I have to do anything with it, because that's a you know that meme of no regrets, the tattoo, but they misspelled regrets?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think of that every time I do this. I'm like, oh man, if I mess this up, it is so much work. And that's not something I can just fix.
Uh-huh.
Lots of other things I can just, Nope, I said swap. Hold on. Lots of other things I can kind of jury rig a fix if I make a mistake. Lettering, not so much. This is going to be a very, very weird part of the video for people watching, of all of us just standing here pinching our faces.
I can put a timestamp in the video for the future.
All right, Carps is
Hopefully I
learning
remember to
editing.
do that. Huh?
Carps is learning editing for this, so
I am
Perfect.
learning
you can
editing
take
for
it out.
this. Uh-huh. I'll fast forward it.
Is the dog getting treats?
Clean it up after me.
She's a very useful dog. With the hardening, it'll feel like nothing's changing. It'll feel like nothing's changing. Like you're like, is this even working? And then suddenly it'll like start to come together really quickly. And you're like, oh, hell yeah. Don't forget that you've left anything in the oven and let it go for too long. I have done that before, and I ruined the leather. If it goes too long, the leather will start to crack. And once it starts cracking, it's over. Oh my God, are you kidding me? I think I just found.
Oh, wonderful.
I spent an hour almost tearing apart my living room. Bam, it was right there. Oh well.
Are you going to shape that one? Put it in the oven with it?
I'm literally just going to go drill some holes real fast. Where is my block of wood? This is how we're living right now still, because we're still unpacking everything. This is the art supplies box, or specifically the art supplies box of non-expensive art supplies. Here is one of those Dremel pieces that you like, what you were talking about. For some reason, let's see if I can get that to. I cannot get that to focus up. Anyways, you can't see it there. For some reason, this one is slotted like screws. And it just doesn't want to fit into my Dremel right because of it.
Yeah.
Aha. The nice thing is once you are comfortable doing this, it takes just no time at all.
Nice.
Assuming you can find the pieces.
How do I know when I'm done pinching and ready to put it in the oven?
I'm starting to get a pretty good shape to it.
Put it in the oven now. Let it sit for a few minutes. Go check it again. You're gonna have to like take it out and repinch back and forth. Unfortunately, there's not really a hard and fast answer to much any of this. It's kind of, okay, that feels good.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go put it in the oven. Hello, I have a question.
Yo, what's up?
What should I put it on in the oven? Should I just do it right on the grill, or should I do it on like a baking pan?
You do it just on the grill, but if you put it on like a baking pan or something, it is less likely to slip and fall down on the grill. It'll hold its shape a little easier.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Welcome to Slightly Bad Drill Safety with Thumbs. Luckily, one, none of you are here to watch, and two, I wasn't drilling the holes, I was just cleaning them out there. One thing that can be kind of nice is if you get a spray bottle for shaping, because I can get a nice even spray. Without having to do the full soak. Oh, man. You're muted.
Hello. Is there a time interval in which you recommend checking on your oven for? Like every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes or so?
I check roughly every 5 minutes, partly because I am impatient and partly because I just get really nervous. I wouldn't really go longer than 10 minutes just because once it does start to go, like once it does start to harden, it tends to harden pretty quick.
Okay.
So, 5-10 minutes. Give it 5 minutes, see how it goes. If you think it needs 10 after that, do that.
Thank you. I'm going to check right now.
Man, I really need to figure out how to make one of these attached to a movable dowel.
So you could like make it look like it was chewing or something?
Yeah, in theory, if I put as separate pieces and put like a Chicago screw to connect them right here or something, if I could just figure out how to attach this part of the chin to the chin, which would be too difficult, when I talked, it would open and close with me. I've seen people do it before. I've just never done it myself, so I am not 100% on the details there, like how to best go about it.
Just attach like the bottom part to a mouth guard or something.
Yeah. Really what it is I just need to experiment and I haven't yet. Yeah.
Good job, you did it.
The place that I looked 3 times, I swear to God. But apparently I was man looking. And I was actively going through.
What do your man eyes see? Nothing.
Nothing. I see nothing.
Have like a go-to leatherworking playlist of music or something?
I like to watch Forged in Fire while I'm leatherworking personally.
Fortune Fire is a good show.
I've been watching so much Forged in Fire.
Well, yes, it's because it's a wonderful, beautiful show where people make amazing things and then watch them get destroyed. And they skip all of the, let's be honest, all of the bullshit manufactured drama that most American competition shows do.
That is true.
Yeah.
That make dislike competition shows. But it's kind of like crafting over Zoom, like crafting with someone else around. I get that same because I look up and see the cool thing they're making, or them getting frustrated too, and me being like, yeah, it's okay. The only thing I have to be careful on it is if I'm not careful, I let myself get stressed out by Will Willis yelling, "There's just 1 hour left," or however left. I was foam smithing once while watching it, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I'm running out of time!" Like, okay, first of all, no, I'm not. There is no time limit for me here. And 2, they actually are taking 3 hours and they're showing it over the course of 10 minutes. So I am not behind.
Yeah. I found out recently that Doug Marcaida is on TikTok and he makes
my God.
He makes random content of him harmonizing with a bunch of people singing in their bathrooms.
That is the best argument for TikTok that I have ever heard in my life. I follow David Baker on Facebook, and he does all of he makes the weapon, he does all of the challenges himself alone in the forge just to make sure there are things that can be done first. And all of the weapons that they show are weapons that Dave Baker made. So he'll occasionally like make videos of himself testing his own weapons in the forge. Just alone, just like, hey, what's up? It's Dave Baker. Here's the sword I made. I'm gonna beat the crap out of it now. And it's just life affirming. His Facebook is pretty much that, pictures of him on his motorcycle and yelling at people who aren't taking COVID seriously. So it's kind of everything I love in life. Like, real quick, this won't come up on, oh God, no, please stop falling. So, this won't come up on either of the things that you have done because you don't have, you know, like a big mouth hole or anything like I was dumb enough to do. Thank you, dear. When shaping, and if you are doing something like teeth here, it's really easy. Looks more like a beak than it looks like the pumpkin I was trying for. Anyways, it's the teeth will sometimes like splay out. So just take the time to check that and individually maybe roll them back in, roll them out. You can do whatever tweaking you need to do. It's not just the 3-point thing we were talking about. Man, I might change this from a pumpkin. This is horrifying in a completely different way than I was expecting it to be. The fun thing is once you figure out the basic shape, you can do most anything with this. I mean, this is the exact same pattern as what we showed here. It's literally the exact same pattern. I just traced out the other one over there with the teeth shape, and I just tooled it differently and shaped it differently. Not shaped it, but like painted it differently. And we ended up with a cat face that I painted look exactly like Garfield's colors because I am an asshole.
My sister sent me a like a looking for poster that she saw on Facebook or something, that it was like looking for an orange cat, not for adoption, just to spend like a couple hours at my house with 2 Garfield loving kids. We'll have a lasagna meal. The cat is not required to eat any.
That's a good parent right there. Like, that is some solid A+ parenting. No, you're fine. There it is. I am just losing things again because I am me. Nope, I am hungry and that smells good.
So how hardened is hardened?
You know, again, it is variable. Technically, you don't even have to harden. It just will go. It just is more fits easier if you do. But you will feel a difference, and I don't know really how to explain it other than just you will feel it when you get there, when it separates from like, here is some leather that's kind of shaped to like, here is a hardened chunk of leather. And so, I know that is not super expressive right there.
I imagine in this case, so if it's hardened, it's going to be pretty much dry, right?
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll see the backing of the leather, the rough leather part, be as pale as it was when we had it dry the last time, right?
Okay.
For the most part, yeah. Sometimes it dries a little darker still. But like, okay, so you see your thing, how you can kind of move it really easily still? I can't do that with this one.
Okay.
A little bit, but...
have a question.
Go.
For a project that might not necessarily be a murder mask, but I still wanted to harden it, but I don't necessarily need to shape it, can I still do it the same way as if it was in the oven?
Yeah. What would you be making, do you think, that you wouldn't need to shape it a little bit?
This is a Pauldron. This is an old one. I'm not making it. It's quite soft. So I was thinking, this isn't one that necessarily needs to be shaped to any specific shape. I mean, I guess maybe curled a little bit.
You would probably want to curl it at least a little bit, because if it's just flat like that, one, it's just not going to
Gotcha.
go as well. But yes, you could. If you wanted just a flat piece, just lay it out as a flat piece, and you wouldn't even have to check it as often, because you wouldn't have to make sure that it's. Part of the reason why we're checking it as often is to make sure that the shape's not warping while it's warm or while it's baking. Which is why we're taking it out and readjusting and doing kind of the 3-point thing again.
The last time I went and I checked it, it was quite hot.
How?
Am I doing something wrong? I have it set to 200. It was warm enough. I could still touch my face with it, but
Okay.
I feel like any warmer, I wouldn't want to.
Yep. So you're not doing anything wrong. You just have a wet piece of leather in 200-degree heat. It will. There is a point before the water starts really baking out where it's just quite warm. It'll feel cooler as less water is in it, but also you are putting a thing into 200-degree heat. It is going to feel warm. That's just because it is.
The water is warm right now, and that's what I'm feeling.
Yep. Which is, well, and the leather too, but the water specifically, which is how I scalded myself, because I had it at like 250, as I said.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, this is just warm like it always is. It's fine. And it was not fine. I also thought that the red parts around my eyes were just, I had dyed myself. No, I had literally sunburned myself. I was crazy. Yeah, I had the like opposite of a raccoon sunburn.
Why is your face?
Oh yeah, that's right. That was like 3 days before my art show. Because I was making it for my art show.
You know what's super cool?
What's that, my love?
We have 2 ovens, so I can bake this at 400 while you're baking that at 200.
And it's perfectly fine. Yeah, I love this house. Oh, that feels about right. I'll give it a little more. I gave the warning about cooking it for too long, but at a low heat, like 200, you really do have to cook it for quite a while.
Yeah.
Before it too long happens and it starts to crack. I mean, part of the reason why I warn you about not forgetting about this is because I have forgotten about it before. And of the, probably dozen murder masks I've made, I've destroyed one.
All right. What do you mean you destroyed it? What does that mean? Like it caught fire and blackened or something? Or?
Nothing that bad. Jesus, no. It just cracked, like the leather cracked. And once that leather cracks, there's not really a fix for it. It's just it's just a weak point and it's going to fall apart right there. There's not really a way you can reinforce it once it cracks. But I honestly, like, it was an all black murder mask, and then I filled in the crack with like a metallic blue, and it just became a showpiece, and it looked super cool, which is good because it was the first murder mask I ever made, and it was almost unwearable in any other way, shape, or form. So
Very
the
cool.
fact, well, you know what, that's enough for my first attempt to build a thing.
Good mentality to keep. I have been practicing with this thing as much as I can, the swivel knife.
Oh, yes, okay. It's amazing, and
Kinda tricky.
it's a little scary at first, yeah.
Yeah. I saw like a good way to practice is to, well, do stuff with it, but then also to trace an S and then do a reverse S. So you can get used to the curves and getting them symmetrical, or like, I guess in this case, mirrored. But I've been practicing and I am not doing so well at it. But it's definitely neat. I've taken like pieces of leather and just tried to.
Yeah, give yourself a scrap piece of leather and just use your tools on it. You know, if you're getting the tooling pieces, the little things that you like hammer in and stuff, use them. Find a thing that is unessential, hammer
Yeah.
all of, make design, see what you can do. There's
I have
always,
been.
if you
I've been
buy sorry, go ahead. You say your thing and I'll say my thing.
I have been taking pieces of armor that like have already had from the like over the years, and I've decided, okay, well, I could still make stuff onto this. So like for this piece, I slicked and I'm burnished and slicking the leather on the sides because it was raw before, or rough anyway. And then I'm adding like edges here with the swivel knife, and then I'm going to hammer it in to give it some more depth and detail.
Perfect. That's exactly what you should be doing. Old stuff, especially early things you make, eventually fall apart. Hold on, I'll show you a thing. This here is all of the pieces. This whole project is, hold on, let me set this up. The first armor I ever made eventually just fell apart. So I have completely rebuilt it using only old leather pieces, retooled it, repainted it, connected everything from scratch, took everything I learned, because I just had these perfectly functional leather pieces that just weren't holding together the way I originally built them.
Nice. And they're prettier. It's pretty now, for sure. Prettier.
And you can't really see it through here, but the pigment, I put a pigment powder over this, and the gold, depending on the light, changes to a purple.
Well, it's very cool.
That's
Yeah, I've
so
seen
cool.
color transitioning paints used on like plastic dip shields and stuff too. They're really neat, especially when the sun hits it.
This is just like a pigment powder. Like it just, you take some like hairspray basically, you spray it across, you put some powder on it and kind of brush it across, and then you do another layer of the hairspray over the top to protect it, and you can do amazing things with it.
Very cool. I'm gonna go check my mask in my oven.
You're good. Killed it. Why would you do that?
It's getting there for sure.
Yep.
These might take a while, Thumbs. I know you only had a certain amount of time. Do you want to show us what the next step is? That way
Honestly, once you have this shaped and hardened,
yeah.
all that's really left is cutting out elastic pieces. And it's just you're going to take a piece. Hold on, I've got elastic nearby here. To figure out the length, the length varies for each person, but you're going to hold it on one side and literally wrap it around your head and make sure that it's stretched a bit. And you're going to attach it on the spots, top, bam, and the same thing on the bottom. It'll end up, in my case, looking something like that because I've got a big head. I guessed on a similar size for someone who was much smaller than me, and they literally couldn't wear it. It was just so big on them. You're going to just fit the elastic, and as I said, you want it to stretch, but you don't want it to stretch so tight that it's uncomfortable, because the elastic will give over time. And then you're going to sew those pieces on in the exact same way that you sewed the nose together, or any way that you just sew. You're going to paint it. And then if you really want, if you have it, get some of, that is very fuzzy, I'm sorry. Get some of this, it's an acrylic finisher. It is a clear coat that you put over the top. It will prevent the paint from chipping and stuff like that. But really, at this point, you are pretty much done. You get it shaped, you get it hardened, you get however you want to wear it to attach. You have a perfectly functional piece of that. From that point on, it is just decoration.
Question about the seal that you just said, the acrylic finisher. Is there any other alternative sealers that you use?
Hairspray would probably work.
Is like a sealant, a spray paint, like for spray paint sealant, would that be sufficient?
Yeah, I'm sure it would be. Hold on.
Like a clear coat? Would a clear coat be sufficient?
Yeah. Clear coat should be fine. As I said, the hairspray, like the Krylon something or another. Oh, okay. Apparently, I am thinking of something else, and it's not a hairspray. Really, it's just something to put a protective layer over the thing. Again, I'm going to mention Angelus leather paints, and I picked up the finisher from the same place. I did a high gloss acrylic sealant. It just looks good, and since I do the gloss one, it makes it kind of shiny. Although there's also a matte version that is just a much flatter look. It's just a personal preference. I like shiny because I am a mantis shrimp.
Mm-hmm.
You see from my colors of all of them. It's just how I roll. But I think on that note, unless anyone else has any questions for me, I am going to go because I have a few things to do before I have dinner tonight. And then I'm going to play some D&D.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Thumbs.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for those who attended. I had a blast, and we're all very appreciative that Thumbs was available, made himself available to teach us today. Yeah.
If you have questions, hit me up. I'm easy to access.
Excellent. Yeah, and you can find more videos on our channel. There's a lot there. And go ahead and contact me. My name is Devin Michael Wilson, or Carps on Facebook or whatever if you have questions as well. Okay, thank you.